Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to Conversion Interactive, the ATA and Transport Topics, for having me today here at the annual R&R Conference. DECODE. We're trying to get into the minds of the driver audience. My name is Christopher Penn. I'm co-founder of Trust Insights, a data science consulting firm for marketers. These slides you can get at wherecanigettheslides.com, including a recording of this this talk as well. Let's talk about the three problems that I'm pretty sure your boss, your stakeholders, your executive, your board want from you, and frankly, so do your customers. Those three things that everybody wants are better, faster, and cheaper. Are we doing this as marketers? Let's tackle better first. Are we as marketers trying to recruit drivers, trying to get attention for our companies? Are we getting better? The answer is not really. And the reason for this is not entirely our fault. The reason for this is the sheer amount of data we are having to contend with every single year. This year, in 2019, we expect to be working with and having to process as a civilization 40 exabytes of data. Now you may say to yourself, an exabyte, what is an exabyte? That sounds big. It is big, but it's an unimaginably large amount of data. Here's a really good way to think about it. One exabyte. If you started to watch Netflix, binge watch Netflix, no breaks for sleeping or eating or using the restroom, kind of like driving a truck. If you binge watch Netflix and started 55 million years ago, you would just now be getting to one zettabyte today. And we're creating 40 of these this year. That's how much data there is for us to process. More close to home, we face data quality challenges of all kinds. Everybody's got this person in their driver database, test at testing.com. We all have this data quality problem, and it's making our marketing worse instead of better. What's the impact of this when our marketing is getting worse instead of better? Well, when asked, a global survey of 2,000 chief marketing officers, CMOs, when asked, what percentage of time do you use marketing analytics in your decision making? The answer was a not exactly rousing 35%. That's about 1 in 3. So 2 out of 3 times our chief marketing executives are making decisions with something other than analytics. Maybe gut, maybe experience, maybe wild guesswork, who knows? But it's not making our marketing better. The second thing that we care about as marketers is making our marketing faster. Take a look at just how diverse the amount of data coming into our systems is. Last year, Netflix, 70,000 hours watched per 60 seconds. This year, 266,000 hours watched. 2018. In 2017, 990,000 swipes on Tinder. This past year, 1.1 million swipes. No indication whether they're left or right. Those of you who are laughing know what we're talking about. 40,000 hours of Spotify in 2017. In this year, on Twitch, 936,000 views per 60 seconds. 1.8 million snaps in 2017, 2.4 million in 2018, 174,000 scrolls per 60 seconds on Instagram. That is just a crazy amount of data, and it's coming at us so fast. We're not equipped to deal with this as marketers. Heck, we're not even equipped to deal with this as humans. It's just a crazy amount of information. If just on news alone, if you got a front page story about how awesome your trucking company is to work for and what a great culture you have, and you're on the front page of the New York Times, you would be one out of approximately 122 million news stories that year. This year, 2019, we are expected to hit 122 million news stories. That is 178 news stories per minute. So that front page hit, gone in 60 seconds, right? It is just so quickly happening to us, all of this information. So are we getting faster? No, the world is. We as marketers, we're not. And our bosses want us to make marketing cheaper or more efficient and get more bang for the buck. How are we doing on that? When asked how CMOs are going to be spending their money over the next 12 months, almost every category except new product introduction is up. Service spending is up, brand spending is up, CRM spending is up, so marketing's not getting cheaper. So we've kind of failed at better, faster, and cheaper. And at some point in the near future, our big stakeholders are going to say, you got to fix this. You got to get marketing under control and start delivering results that we all care about. How are we going to do that? The answer, in part, is using artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence promises us three things: acceleration, accuracy, and automation. Acceleration means that we speed up our marketing to keep pace with the way marketing is going today. You've seen just how fast the data is. Accuracy means better results, either because the machines can do computations that we can't, or the machines are doing jobs that we were doing, tasks that we were doing that we were not doing a great job at. And of course, automation, doing stuff that is so rote, so routine, so mundane, that's not worth our time to do this. I used to work at a PR agency, and I remember there's this one person I used to work with, and their job 8 hours a day was copying and pasting from one spreadsheet to another. It was appalling, a total waste of human talent, a total waste of that person's mind. But because there was no other way at that time for that company to be able to manage that, that's what they did. That's terrible. We want to get people out of that kind of work and into much more fulfilling work. So, AI is the solution. What is this? Everybody's heard about it. You've probably conjured up images in your mind of everything from WALL-E to the Terminator. What is AI? If we think about how humans learn, how human beings learn, it's through a very straightforward set of processes. This is from Harvard University. In the beginning, we have basic inputs, basic understandings of the world. Stove hot, don't touch it. We evolve over time in that first year of life to learn language, to learn structure of communication, and basic learning from our environment. And then we get to higher cognitive function. By the way, as a parent of a teenager, I very much appreciate that the cognitive function drops off as soon as they hit their teenage years. But but our machines are following the same kind of pathway. They begin with algorithms, evolve to machine learning, get to deep learning, and will eventually, in the distant future, not soon, become sentient, become self-aware, be able to do things themselves. That is a long time away. Just want to throw that out there now. All artificial intelligence is based on math. It is not magic. We say that often to people. It's AI is math, not magic. And this begins in statistics and probability. What is the probability that this is a picture of a hot dog or a truck or a tire or a gallon of milk? What is the probability that this person is going to apply for this job or be successful in this job? Stats and probability. When you start taking statistical techniques and gluing them together, you get algorithms. And as marketers, we use algorithms every day. If you've ever done an A/B split test, you've used an algorithm. We use them as humans in our daily life. If you got dressed this morning, and all of you have, clearly, you probably put the same general article of clothing on every day, right? Some people put the bottoms on first, some people put the top on first, a few weirdos put their socks on first, but everybody does generally the same thing. You have a general sequence of things. Those are algorithms, repeatable processes to achieve an end result. When you get algorithms that are sophisticated enough, you get to evolve into what's called machine learning. And this is the opposite of the way software normally works. You load a new app on your phone. The app is the software that's been coded, and it spits out data, whether it's high scores in Candy Crush or insights about the drivers who are calling into your call center now. Machine learning is different. You feed the data, a lot of data to a machine. It learns from it and then writes its own software. So here's an example. Suppose you had a table full of blocks. What are the different ways that you could categorize and understand and make use of this? Well, if we fed it to a machine, we'd be looking for one of two types of machine learning. Either it's called supervised learning or unsupervised. Supervised learning means we train a machine to recognize over and over again, this is the color red. And then over time, it writes its own software to understand the color red. And then we continue to feed it new data. And it tells us the probability that there's a color red in every new picture or every new block. The most famous example of supervised learning is from IBM Watson in 2012, I think it was. Watson was working with the University of Tokyo, and there's this woman who had a form of leukemia. And doctors were treating her, and she wasn't getting any better. And what they did was they said, okay, let's have Watson take a stab at this and figure out what's going wrong here. So they sequenced her entire genome and fed it to Watson. They also sequenced in 233,000 journals of oncology. Watson read all 233,000, digested them down, and assessed the woman's genome, and spit out and said, hey, you're treating the wrong kind of leukemia. You think it's this type, it's actually this other type. Change the treatment. The doctors did. The woman made a full recovery. Now, that's pretty cool. That's pretty amazing that the machinery did that. But what's really amazing, to this point about better, faster, cheaper, is that Watson did this in 11 minutes. So that's supervised learning. Unsupervised learning is when we have a big pile of stuff and we want to make sense of it, whether it is social media posts, whether it is recruitment applications, whether it is conversations about road conditions, whether it is photos from drivers who are on the road right now on their Instagram feeds. We want to understand. So instead of looking for just, in this example of the colored blocks, instead of just looking for a colored block of some kind, of a specific color, we want to understand what are the different colors here, or what are the different shapes and the different sizes, and we want to make order out of chaos, and the machines can help us do that. This is an example of taking a whole bunch of text, 2,600 articles, and distilling them down into a chart so that we could present this to a customer and say, here's what this huge body of text was about. And we're going to show some more examples of this as it applies specifically to recruitment and retention of drivers. But this is what unsupervised learning does. When you start taking different types of machine learning and gluing them together, you get what is called deep learning. It's called deep learning because if you think about these algorithms like text analysis and scoring and probability and clustering, and glue them all together like stacks of pancakes, and the data flows from one layer to the next, that's called deep learning. When you do this, when you put these types of things together, you get machines that can think like we do, but better, faster, and cheaper. There's a popular app on your phone called Google Translate, where Google switched over and said, instead of trying to do one-to-one translations, we're just going to let the machines learn how to translate on their own. And Google did this. Google actually reverse engineered all 130 human languages and came up with a machine language underneath them all. So now when you use Google Translate, you go from English to Google to Dutch, or from Spanish to Google to Japanese, and the translations are substantially better. We will see this in the trucking industry, in the transportation industry in the next few years, in autonomous and semi-autonomous vehicles, where instead of trying to tell a vehicle, hey, this is what a median line is or what a guardrail is, that the machines are learning, using deep learning techniques to understand how to drive a vehicle as good as we do or better. So that's the hierarchy. Stats and probability become algorithms, which become machine learning, which become deep learning. And the reason this is important is not because I expect anyone in this room to become a machine learning expert or an AI expert. That's not your job. Your job is to be the best marketers in the transportation industry you can be. And what this is for is so that you can tune your BS meter, because every vendor in the next year is going to be throwing, if they're not already, they're throwing the term AI on every product they can. You want to be able to understand who's got the real deal and who doesn't. So that's the point of this tutorial. When it comes to getting ready to use machine learning and deep learning, there's sort of a hierarchy of analytics. This hierarchy, most companies are at the bottom and trying to figure out what happened, what's the stuff, how many people visited our website, how many applications were submitted, how many calls did our call center get. That's relatively low value data, but it's important. It's the bedrock for everything else. From there, you move up the ladder to the diagnostic analytics. Why did something happen? Why is call volume down in our call center yesterday? Why have we hired fewer drivers this year than last year? And that's qualitative data. We need stuff like focus groups and customer advisory boards and surveys to understand that. From there, we move up the hierarchy to predictive analytics. What's going to happen next? what's our forecasted number of driver applications? What's our forecasted number of visitors to our website? What's our forecasted pay-per-click in our advertising? We need predictive analytics to help us plan better. From there, we move up to prescriptive analytics. What should we do? Hey, driver applications down 40%. What should we do? Using machine learning technology, we would come up with prescriptions. And the outcome that we're all looking for someday far in the future is, can a machine do this for me? Can I stop doing this repetitive task and give it to a machine? When driver applications are down 20% over 2 days, hey machine, go set up an ad campaign and run it for me. That's where we want to go. And very, very few companies are there yet, other than Amazon or Facebook. When it comes to the problems that machine learning and AI can solve, again, we talked about supervised and unsupervised learning. This is when we have the good knowledge of our data, and we either have an outcome we're looking for, or we want to classify different outcomes. When we have less knowledge of our data, but we know what outcome we want, that's more of a data mining and a data science problem. And then for when we don't know the outcome and we don't have knowledge of the data, that's where we as marketers need to step up our game. And that's why we'll continue to have jobs for the foreseeable future, because those unknown unknowns, when we don't know what we don't know, but we have human experience, when we have personal relationships, we can solve those problems in ways that machines simply cannot and won't be able to for a long time. AI is not good at 4 things, right? It's not good at empathy. It can simulate it, but it doesn't truly understand how to empathize with other people. When you're talking to a driver and they're telling you about their tough situation they're in, a machine can understand the context and some of the words, but can't really empathize with that person. Machines also can't do complex judgment. Someone's talking about their driving record and some mitigating circumstances, and a machine can have an algorithm that says pass or no pass, hire or no hire, but it can't use human judgment to override and say, no, you know what, we're going to give you a shot. Machines are not capable of that yet. Machines also, because of their narrow focus or the way they're built, they can only do narrow types of evaluations. They can't understand general life experience. And machines, for today, for the most part, are worse at human-to-human relationships than we are. The exception being if your experience, your customer experience, is so bad, so terrible, that a machine is preferable. How many people love going to the Department of Motor Vehicles? Yeah, nobody. Nobody likes going there, right? That's a case where a machine, we would rather deal with a machine than a human. As long as your customer experience, whether it's recruitment, whether it is driver relationship management, whether it is management, as long as your human experience is better than what a machine can deliver, then AI will not be an improvement on it. So let's look at some practical applications of this technology as it relates to your work, so that you can see the value of it and understand what's inside of your drivers' heads. We worked with Conversion Interactive to look at 5 major problems, and we're going to actually dig seriously into first one, that untapped data, digging into the driver's mind. But these are the problems that AI can help us solve as marketers. Data that we don't have access to, it's untapped, it's locked away from analysis because it's not structured. Things like phone calls or emails or discussion forums. Identifying who's influential within a space. We're not good as marketers at necessarily being able to do that. As marketers, we sometimes have lots of data that we don't know how to make sense of. It's unclear, so we need to be able to solve that. As marketers, sometimes we're just too unfocused. Our experience with data is that someone backs the truck up and pours data all over our desk. That's no good, so we need machine learning to help solve that. And because of all these other challenges, we're unprepared for the future. We're reacting all the time. We're not able to plan ahead, and machine learning can help us solve that. So let's dig into the untapped data in particular, because I think this is a fun example of the power of machine learning. We did a project for Conversion Interactive. We looked at 17,400 call transcripts from call centers from many of their clients, like Boyd and Rail and Cardinal and many, many others, and had machines transcribe those calls into text that the machines could analyze. By the way, I think this is important to say. Data quality matters a lot. There were an awful lot of calls that were 4 to 6 hours long, and you know what they were? Hold music. hold music or hold announcements. And one company has like religious radio, and so the transcript was all this pastor preaching. Had to get rid of that. But know that data quality is really important. We also looked at 20,000 Reddit posts, 10,000 Facebook posts, over 100,000 driver forum posts, and then 21,000 job listings from Indeed.com. And what we wanted to understand was, what are the things that you talk about with your drivers? What are the things that you and your drivers talk about? And then what are the things that drivers talk about when they think they're by themselves, they're among their community online? And the importance is to look for the overlap and to look for the mismatches, because if you want to be better at recruiting drivers, if you want to be better at speaking their language, you need to use the terms and the words and the phrases and the concepts and talk about the stuff that they care about and address that when they're in the recruitment process, so that they're more likely to work with you. If you don't do that, if you just talk about only what's important to you, well, it's like any other human-to-human interaction. We're not going to be thrilled about somebody who only wants to talk about themselves. We want to talk to people who we can have a conversation with, or who will listen to us and address our concerns. And if we can do that using machine learning to understand these 5 big pools of information, we will get the better drivers. We will get the best talent. So let's dig in. When you look at Indeed.com, Indeed.com is a job board. We're all familiar with it. And what do we talk about in our driver listings, right? The listings are super, super heavy on, here's what you must do for us. You must have this kind of license. You must possess this type of class, CDL. You must be this age. You must have this number of qualifications. You may not have any moving violations. It's all about us as the company. This is what we're telling the drivers. This is what you must have, right? As we're going to see, a little on the tone deaf side, right? The terms that we focus on the most in all of these job boards is all about what we care about. When we talk to those drivers, guess what? Some of those things come up, like driving records, tickets, accidents, incidents. What are the drivers talking about? Let's talk about pay, per load, per mile. What types of trucks? What are the hours of the shifts? When am I home? What types of vehicles? And all these things that, if we go back for just a second, none of this is in the job listings. None of this is talking about, none of what is in our job listings is about what the drivers are talking to us about. What a mismatch. What an opportunity to change our listings and to focus at least somewhat in a balance on what we need, but also what the drivers need. And we see this much more clearly as soon as we move out of interactions with our companies and into to what the drivers care about. In the trucking forums, drivers care about the job, not the rates. We talk about pay per mile, cents per mile and stuff, but they care about the job, the quality of the job. Whether there's things like employment drug screening testing. If you failed, what happens if you failed the drug test? Renting vehicles, drivers' salaries, all sorts of things that, guess what? In our job listings, these things aren't in here. These topics, these discussion points aren't in here. We're not addressing what the drivers are talking about to each other on trucking forums, on Facebook. There's that religious stuff from a lot of Facebook forums have become very noisy, and even on Reddit. When am I home? What kinds of holiday time do I get? Am I home for Christmas and stuff? We haven't crawled into the drivers' heads. We've instead, as marketers, been so sender-centric, so focused on what we care about that we're not addressing them, and as a result, the drivers can't tell the difference between the companies, right? Other than the worst possible way, which is who pays better, right? If that's the only differentiator, then it's a race to the worst possible outcome. The company that loses the most money in pay is the one that will win if there's no differentiation. If we don't start speaking like the drivers do and talking about what they care about, they can't tell the difference between us. So wouldn't it be great to be the company that acknowledged and listened to their concerns? Wouldn't it be great to be the company who put those concerns and addressed them up front in job listings so that there was no doubt as to which company cared the most about the drivers? And by the way, don't forget about after the hire. Are you monitoring? Are you listening? Are you decoding what the drivers are saying about you and to you after they've been hired? The most well-known website for this is Glassdoor. So we scraped a few thousand reviews from Glassdoor from a couple of different major companies. You can break out Glassdoor reviews by like who's in management and who's a driver, and when you'll see what management talks about, they don't really talk about the drivers at all. They complain mostly about other people in the company. When you look at the drivers themselves, the drivers, when they are talking about companies, what they like or don't like about companies, again, pay is in there, but communication, dealing with dispatchers, what do you do with a bad day? Is management working the drivers well or poorly? How is the company's safety? What are the benefits? This is fertile ground for you to be building great marketing so that you can help you can get the best drivers you possibly can. Key factors. So be monitoring before the drivers come to you. Be monitoring what you put out to the world. Be monitoring those interactions with those drivers, and please tune up that customer experience so that the drivers have the best experience in the application process. It's just like dating, right? If the first date's terrible, you ain't getting married to that person. And the driver's thinking that when they interact with your company. Some other additional use cases of machine learning to help you crawl inside the mind of the driver. When we talk about influencer marketing, one of the biggest flaws of influencer marketing is that we tend to look at who's loudest or who has the most number of followers, when in reality, at events like Mid-America Trucking and Great American Trucking and the ATA conference, when you're talking to drivers, when you're listening to drivers, listen to who they pay attention to. This is an example from a retail show. We looked at the National Retail Federation. Who is the most talked about? Look at these events coming up. I believe Mid-America Trucking is coming up at the end of March. Tune in and see who the drivers talk about and use that as a way to bring some personalities, bring some new voices into your recruitment marketing. When we look at the data itself and data about that we're using to attract drivers, things like search engine optimization, SEO, we have a lot of data that we could be processing, and some of it's unclear as to what the priority is. We can use techniques called like machine learning to isolate what are the terms that we should be putting into our job ads, into our websites to attract drivers and get the highest impact for the lowest cost. In this chart, on the horizontal axis is the term is how difficult it is to rank for these terms in your content. On the vertical axis is how popular the terms are. If I was running a trucking company, I would want to be in the top left. I would want to focus on words and phrases as close to the top left as possible. So here, truck driving jobs, not difficult to rank for, highly searched, as opposed to trucking jobs, which is not as highly searched, but super difficult to rank for. And then back to the left, CDL jobs, truck driver jobs. These are terms that people search for a lot, but there are not a lot of companies doing a good job of ranking for them. Local truck driving, Class B CDL, non-CDL, etc. I want to use machine learning to help me prioritize what content to create, what to put on my landing pages, what words and phrases even to put in my ads. And you're going to want to work with an agency, someone like Conversion Interactive, to help you tune this up to get the biggest bang for your buck. When we have all of this data, sometimes we need to also be able to tune our resources to know how to focus on what's working. So, for example, one of the questions marketers have across industries is, how do I know it's working? Attribution analysis using machine learning can help us understand these channels are working better or worse. This is one that we did for a client where they wanted us to understand what's converting, what channels, what efforts are converting. And email and organic search are obviously up there and major contributors. But it's funny, this company spends a lot of money, a lot of time and money on Facebook. Facebook ads, Facebook this, Facebook that, but Twitter and LinkedIn are actually driving more conversions, more job applications, or whatever the outcome is. In this example, they're spending all their money in the wrong spot. So by having these kinds of insights from your data, you can pivot and focus on the places where you want to invest the most. Right? And every company is going to be different. This is not a hard and fast rule. This is for this company only. You want to use this kind of technology for your analytics work with your agency to tune up and focus on what's going to work best for you and what is working best for you already. Another example Another example is if we go through all those reviews from Glassdoor, what among drivers topically matters most to them? And for this example, this is one large trucking company. Pay is what the drivers rate the company. What helps decide the company's positive reviews on Glassdoor, followed by culture, and then by the month of the review. There's some seasonality there. Things like management, how well is the company managed? That's at the bottom of the list. So for drivers of this company, it's all about the money. Right? So if this company wanted to change its strategy of retaining its drivers, not recruiting, but retaining their drivers, this tells them what to focus on. Remember, we are recruitment and retention. We need to keep the drivers we've got. And so if we use this type of analysis to understand, hey, here's what your drivers are publicly saying about you the most, this will help you make those determinations. Very important for recruiting and retention. And finally, the last tool that you want to use as a company is forecasting and predicting to deal with the fact that most of the time we're reactive. It turns out that truck driving, like many other industries, has a lot of seasonality to it, a lot of cyclicality to it. So if we use predictive analytics to forecast when people are searching for those terms like truck driving jobs, when during the year should we be focusing on our increasing our advertising. So for example, in Q1, the week of February 3rd, which was a couple weeks ago now, was the week that you need to spend the most, to advertise the most, to focus on most heavily on truck driving jobs, because that's when drivers are paying the most attention. In Q2, it's going to be towards the middle of May for one spike, and then towards the end of the quarter. In Q3, right around the beginning of August, when search will be highest, and then again right around the back to school. And then in Q4, right around Halloween, and then it really drops off. By using predictive analytics, using machine learning to forecast in advance, we can plan down to week by week when people are searching for specific terms, and use that to plan our content, to plan our ad spend, to plan our outreach, to plan our influencers. You name it, we can plan ahead for it. This is what the next this is what the quarter looks like. When I ran this analysis, CDL jobs near me was the top term. Here at R&R, it's trucking jobs near me. That's the term that's popular right now, and over time you'll see these things change. So if we have the analytics in advance, we have the searches in advance, we can plan for our content, for our promotion, you name it. You can even distill this down into specific terms, like focusing on, hey, this week, these are the terms to focus on. Next week, publish content. The third week out, prep for content. And 4 weeks out, plan for this content. By having content calendars, we can use machine learning to create prescriptive paths of action and help us get ahead of that endless scramble, the reactiveness of our jobs, and get ahead of that. Stop doing that. So that is 5 applications of artificial intelligence for the trucking industry, for recruiting in the trucking industry, the space. Tap that knowledge that you don't have access to. Identify those influencers. Clear up confusing data sets. Figure out what's most important and get some focus, and then predict and forecast so that you can plan ahead for the future. The most important thing to take away from this is to start now. Start your efforts now in using these technologies. Work with great companies that have these, because the sooner you can start, the sooner you can take advantage of the data that you already have. Machine learning, remember, is based on data. The more data you have, the faster you can train those models. If you wait, or if you're competing against a competitor and that competitor is waiting, they're at a disadvantage. They are not collecting the data, which means that they can't start training those models. Now, to prepare for this, you have to take that journey towards artificial intelligence. That journey begins with that data foundation. Find, clean, prepare your data sources. Work with your agencies across the board to bring your data into one place so that you have it. From there, you want to become a data-driven company. I know that a couple of years ago, this conference is called 3Ds, Data-Driven Decisions. And so you've presumably done that or made good progress towards becoming a data-driven company, identifying and measuring your KPIs. Your next step in that journey is to become more qualitative, explaining the data story, being able to do market research effectively. And finally, for most companies, automate the processes that you have in place, find inefficiencies that you can use machines for. After that, only companies that are using machine learning for their core competency, like if you were a self-driving truck company, would you need to take the next 3 steps? Otherwise, the next 3 steps are things to look for within your partner companies, and those are data science capabilities. Does your partner have the ability to explore the unknowns, to have statistical and mathematical capabilities, code and engineering talent within them that allow them to really analyze data and extract powerful insights from it? Those agencies also, those partners, should have machine learning capabilities, advanced process automation, data science to deploy the supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning models. And ideally, the partners you work with are AI powered. If they're not today, they will be in the future, and you want to have them in your stable to help you really and truly grow those capabilities. So that's the journey you need to take towards artificial intelligence, the ability to get those first 4 rungs in order, no matter your company, and then the next 3 rungs are criteria that you look for inside of the partners you work with. Some people say, should we try doing this ourselves? Should we build it as opposed to buy it? And the answer, for the most part, is if you've got time and you don't have money, yes. But if you've got money and you don't have time, no. And strategically, I would say more than anything, it is whether or not artificial intelligence will be affecting the core competency of your company. If you are, again, a company that's making self-driving vehicles, yes, obviously you want to build that as your secret sauce. If you're not going to be doing that, then no. The answer is you look for it in a great partner. So how do you prepare yourself? We've heard a lot about the journey to AI. How do you prepare your career? 'Cause some of it can sound a little intimidating. To make sure that your job is safe from the robots, you need to have multidisciplinary skills. When we look at the skills that are in highest demand, according to LinkedIn, these are sort of the tops for 2019. And within each of these areas, artificial intelligence can automate a number of the individual tasks. But if you are good at more than one area, like sales leadership and people management and analytical reasoning, it's very difficult for a machine to replace what you do because a machine can't think across those disciplines. So if you are really good at talking to drivers and doing analytics and understanding geospatial data, like mapping and things, that's a much more difficult thing to train a machine to do than to simply just say, copying and pasting or managing individual applications. You want to learn how to think algorithmically. Think like a machine. You don't have to be a programmer, but you have to be able to think, when I approach a problem at work, how do I get a machine to solve this? How would I repeatedly solve this problem? This is a thinking trait that is taught to the staff of companies like Google and Facebook, where they are machine-first companies. They want to scale as quickly as possible. If you want to scale, any problem that you're dealing with at work, whether it is retention rates, whether it is evaluating applications, how do you think like a machine to solve that problem over and over again, and then you provide that feedback to your engineering or to your partner companies that you're working with? And finally, almost finally, we need to oversee the machines. This is an important thing that for all of us in marketing and frankly in business, we're going to need to pay attention to. A couple of years ago, ProPublica did this great study of a police department in Florida that tried to build a predictive algorithm about recidivism, who would be likely to commit another crime. Their algorithm was terrible. It was 20% right. You'd have been better off flipping a coin. But there was so much bias in their data that it predicted incorrectly that African Americans would be 5 times more likely to reoffend than they actually did. You want to make sure that this sort of bias does not creep into your efforts. More famously, last year, Amazon got in a tremendous amount of trouble because they built an AI HR system. It didn't work out. It was trained on previous data, and it discriminated heavily against women. Why? Because all their existing data said, we only hire men here for certain jobs. This is a dumb thing to do, and as a result, Amazon had to throw the whole system away. So being able to oversee the machines and say that is not the outcome we want is going to be a critical skill for the future. Be outcome focused. you don't have to become a programmer anymore. What's happening right now in artificial intelligence and machine learning is so incredible in terms of what the machines can do. This is a poster I used to have hanging up in my office, and I was trying to learn this deep learning framework called Keras. And then I went to IBM Think last year, and they said, oh yeah, now you can drag and drop it. I just came back from IBM Think this year, and they said, oh, now you don't even need to do this. Now you just give the data set to the machine, and the machine will do all the hard work for you. The machines are going to do the heavy lifting for us. Now, we just have to be able to think about the outcomes we want and be able to give the machines feedback about those outcomes. Pragmatically, look for ways to incorporate this technology into your everyday usage. This is a service called Otter.ai. It's one that we used for the project with Conversion Interactive. We took all those calls from their call center, just tossed them into the software, and it did the transcription for us. We didn't have to do the transcription. The machines did for us, and then we could mine that data. Look for every opportunity in your company to be outcome focused. So that was a whirlwind tour of the way that machine learning and artificial intelligence is going to impact the recruiting and the retention of drivers in your industry. In the future, there's going to be two kinds of jobs, right? Either you're going to manage the machines, or the machines are going to manage you. And I will tell you right now, you want to be in the first category because it's going to pay better and it's going to be much more interesting work. So get started today. Work with great partner companies today, and start using machine learning to give yourself that strategic advantage to give you the best drivers, the best workforce that you can possibly have. My name is Christopher Penn. You can get the slides at wherecanIgettheslides.com, and if you'd like a book to review a lot of what we've talked about today, you can find a book of this lecture at aiformarketersbook.com. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to Conversion Interactive and the ATA, and I look forward to talking to you after this session. Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.